guys, come in, come in. All right, so first I want to talk a bit about the neighborhood and the strategy behind the project and how we wound up here. So, how many people live in the Bronx? Okay. So, this is going back to about 2016, 2017, when we decided we were going to start to focus on the next neighborhood in New York. And I think, as everybody knows, as a company, we don't really go around chasing sites or chasing individual opportunities. What we'll do is establish a strategy and then go and develop a plan to execute on that strategy. So we set out to find the next neighborhood in New York that we were going to focus on. And as also everybody knows, we've been very early into several rezonings around the city, right? So several areas in Long Island City, Greenpoint, Williamsburg, now of course Gowanus, big week this week, got approved earlier in the week. And Mott Haven is a little different because Mott Haven was actually rezoned in 2009. But there really had been virtually no development in Mott Haven since the rezoning. What happened was the de Blasio administration put together a plan of about $200 million in infrastructure investments to try to jumpstart the development in this area. And when we were looking at several neighborhoods throughout the city, we really kept coming back to Mott Haven, because when we looked at various areas around New York that, particularly over the past 15 years, had really grown through rezoning, they shared several characteristics, but you could really rank them in terms of attractiveness and livability, A, B, C, D, and in all the 8 characteristic neighborhoods, they shared several great opportunities. First, there was an opportunity for real critical mass in development to bring in services and resources. There was great transportation accessibility, and then great accessibility to waterfront and public recreation spaces. So Mott Haven really shared all that, and we saw this as a unique opportunity that was on par with, say, a Long Island City or Greenpoint, Williamsburg, in terms of the potential that it has for growth. The unique thing about Mott Haven, what we thought would ultimately happen, compared to a Long Island City or Williamsburg, everybody's familiar with those neighborhoods, and when they were rezoned, really back in 2004, 2005, the vision was that in 10 years you would have a contiguous waterfront and that those neighborhoods would get developed. So everybody knows that still to date, that hasn't happened. There's been a lot of progress, but it's very fragmented. One of the unique things about Mott Haven is there was an opportunity really for a contiguous control all along the waterfront, going from really Randall's Island, where Bankside is going in now, all the way up to Yankee Stadium. So it was conceivable that Mott Haven could actually take shape at a pace that was 2, 3, even more times accelerated versus how other neighborhoods in New York had come together. So we really decided that this is where we were going to be. We were going to focus on this neighborhood, and we were going to start to systematically catalog the sites and figure out what would be the best site for us to ultimately focus on. And that infrastructure investment really helped to inform that. And it drew us to this site. I'll talk about that in a minute, but these 2 sites really sit at the center of where that entire infrastructure investment is going to go. It's all the streets and blocks around us, and then the waterfront immediately in front of us. So in 2017, when we tied these sites up, there was nothing else happening in the neighborhood. None of these other projects that you'll see were there yet. But these are our 2 sites here, 445 Girard and 414 Girard. It's a full block and then a half block. And the back portion of this block is owned by Hostos, where they're going to be developing a new science building. So the city's infrastructure plan includes a new park that sits right here. So our whole site block faces that park. And that park plan looks like this, which has a big field, playgrounds, an amphitheater, splash pads, and then a get down that goes down to the water. And then this connects on both sides to a promenade that will run up in this direction to Yankee Stadium and then down in this direction to Randall's Island. And after we bought these sites, there were 2 big RFPs that were awarded by the city. One was this site here. So when we bought this site, this was a closed elementary school. They demolished the elementary school. They built a new playground that we walked through. And this site is going to be the largest passive house project in the country. So it's a very environmentally sustainable green design. It's all 130% AMI income restricted and about 270 apartments. The other big RFP that the city put out and awarded is right here, which is Bronx Point. And you may have seen that in the news. That's where the Universal Hip Hop Museum is going to go. So this project is now under construction. This project is now under construction. And Lightstone, which is another developer that is in several of the neighborhoods that we're in, assembled this site, and this site, and is developing about 2,000 units in 6 high-rises along the waterfront. So really, after we got these, all of this fell into place, and then has since expanded out from here. Now there's about 5,000 units planned or under construction, including Bankside, which is the big 7-building project that most people probably drove by. So it's really just like we thought would ultimately happen because of the ability for the private sector to really control this waterfront and accelerate the pace that it moves forward. This is happening at such a faster pace. If you remember the way Long Island City or Greenpoint got started, kind of one project initially after the other as a slow build versus this, which is really this accelerated process. About what else we can cover, we talk about the architecture. Then, so from an affordability perspective on this site, when we started work on these, there were really no tax-exempt bonds or credits available. So we're leveraging 2 programs here. One is the 421A program, which is expiring in June. So it's the old, soon be the old 421A program. That would have 30% of the units restricted at 130% of AMI. We then layered in voluntary inclusionary housing. So by volunteering to make 20% of the building lower income than that, we're able to increase our floor area in the building and expand the size of the building. So we took 20% of those units and brought them down to 80% of AMI, and that allowed us to build a bigger building. So what we wind up with is 20% of the building at 80 and 10% of the building at 130. So the 2 programs that we'll be dealing with from a compliance and regulatory perspective going forward will be Affordable New York and then voluntary inclusionary housing through HPD, but we won't have tax credits and tax-exempt bonds. Another interesting thing about the sites, they were both brownfields. So very similar to 1133, we're taking the sites from contaminated brownfield state all the way to a green building. And on these buildings, really pushing sustainability and green design beyond anything we've done on any other project. So Chris talked a little more about that, but these projects will ultimately be Platinum LEED certified, which is the highest level of LEED certification. And then we're doing a variety of other things beyond certification, like PV panels, electric car charging, we have cogen, and a number of other things on the site. So a great story from that perspective, and what was really a very contaminated brownfield, working with the state's program, the Brownfield Cleanup Program. It's another one of the incentive programs we're working with to go all the way from a brownfield to a green building. I think that covers it on the development side.